Hey guys, this is Scholar General Mojian Denbing. Today's an extra special video because I'm here with Jeremy Thomas.
Greetings, Jeremy Thomas, Joplin Bachmei Athletic Association.
So Jeremy Thomas is a Bachmei Sifu and he's taught me a lot of cool things and I love working and training with him. But today is extra special because as you can see, we have a massive table of swords. And these are all of LK Chen's single-handed Dao that they offer so far. You never know.
they come out fast.
Yeah, they produce them really fast. What we're going to do is kind of talk about some of the evolution and, you know, the use. And because we've handled most of these swords, we've made some videos about quite a few of these swords. And, yeah, we'll just get right into it.
All right, let's jump into it.
Yeah, so first we have the Royal Arsenal Han Dao. I recently made a video on this. Jeremy is making a video on this and he's cut with it quite a bit. And this blade is the first Dao in Chinese history that becomes a battlefield weapon. It's a really nifty ring pommel sword.
So I'm going to speak mostly to the cutting ability of it. It's really interesting having the curve in the sword in the opposite direction. It's a really neat light sword for people who need something a little lighter to cut with. It took a minute to find the sweet spot, which is closer to the center than it normally is on a sword that's curved the other way, which would be closer to the tip. So the sweet spot's closer to the inside, and with the single bevel edge, it's not very forgiving on edge alignment, so you've got to have your edge alignment pretty good to get a nice clean cut.
Yeah. I've also noticed when I was cutting that it's really lightweight, and you want to make sure you're putting enough speed into it because the heft of the blade is not going to carry you through the target.
Right. No,
you have to generate all of that yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that works on some of your basic mechanics a little bit.
Very good for somebody that wanted something lightweight that was easy on their wrists, somebody that had wrist issues. This would be perfect for.
All right, and here we have the next Dao, which is the Cavalry Han Dao. And this is basically just the big brother of the Royal Arsenal. And what I have here is this is an earlier production model that LK Chen then revised, and he made this one. So the current one that you would buy is this one right here. But it's interesting to kind of compare both of these because one of them is substantially more curved than the other. So obviously having this nice long blade and extra reach gives you some advantages with cavalry. And I will make a video about this sword in the future and talk a little bit more about the curvature. It's kind of a mystery exactly why it's there. There's a few ideas though. And yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, this will be my first chance to get to mess around with this one, so we'll see how it cuts.
Yeah.
And if it holds true that sweet spot will be further in on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I'd like to know that as well. That would be interesting.
All right.
Yeah. Moving on down the line, we have the double Dragon Sui Dao. Or Tang Dao, depending on who you ask.
There's a little bit of debate on whether it's Sui or Tang.
Yeah. So I know that there's one notable scholar in China who recently published a book a couple years ago who argues that based off the shape of the handguard, he believes this to be a Tang Dynasty Dao, even though this piece has been in the Met for almost a century or more, and the whole time that it's been there, it's been labeled as a Sui Dynasty Dao. So a little bit of a mystery there. What's interesting, though, is the kind of ornate or elite nature of this Dao. I made a video on this one, and I believe you have as well.
Yeah, very ornamental. I haven't released a video on this one yet, but it's got some very ornamental pieces on it that make cutting a little bit, not difficult, but you have to change up a few things for these particular metal pieces that are in there. And just a little bit of a change up on the hand grip and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It still cuts pretty well.
Yeah, and there is also, this is one that LK Chen actually modified the length of the grip. The original one is slightly shorter, and he extended the grip length so that the tassel part would not interfere with your hand while you're trying to.
So there's enough width there that you can get your hand.
Yeah.
On it
you can easily grip this.
Yeah.
Grip the sword.
So.
Yeah.
Interesting blade, nice straight profile, no curvature at all.
Yeah, and as we can see, completely straight. So the Dao, they started out with the forward curve and then they straightened out. And with the ring pommels, I'm going to make another video about ring pommels. I've said that a few times at this point. I will make it, I promise. But Yeah, there's the thing is these ring pommels, I think that they start out much more utilitarian, and as they go on, they start to become more decorative in some spaces, right? So during the Sui and Tang dynasty is really when I think the heyday of super decorative ring pommels was a thing. And yeah, it's more complicated than that, of course, but yeah.
As you go up the hierarchy in the military, as you go
exactly,
up, the
yeah.
officers probably have more ornate tools.
Yeah. So a weapon like this would not be used by a foot soldier for sure. So
awesome.
And next we have the Palatial Tang Dao. So this is a Dao that I haven't messed around with too much. I've swung it around a bunch, but haven't cut with it exactly. It's interesting and notable because of the, pretty wide crossguard that it has. Now, this is something that is, found on some paintings, and I believe that this model in particular is modeled off a painting, but there are some guards around the Tang dynasty that did appear to extend further out like this, and a lot of people assume that's kind of a European thing, but it's not just a European thing. Cultures frequently have similar ideas, it's just that they don't always latch onto those ideas, and in China they didn't latch onto the crossguard in the same way.
It makes sense that they'd give something a try, at least trial, run, error.
Yeah, exactly.
If it didn't go over well, then move on to the next thing.
And why it didn't stick is a whole nother question. I'm not gonna get into that right now. Another thing that we can see is, just like the last Dao, this has a completely straight blade, and the spine of these Dao really start to get really thick and hefty. If you can see
the big difference I see between this and the last specimen we looked at is the point here. It's got very close to what I would call a ninjato point. I know that's not correct, but you can see it's very, very sharp.
Very angular.
Very angular.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's definitely what I would consider, something that's built to stick, built to thrust.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
interesting.
It's not going to be damaged as easily when you're thrusting, yeah.
No, not at
and
all.
Then, another thing about these blades, I think especially compared to the Han Dynasty, is that the Han Dynasty blades have a hollow grind, but afterwards they quickly fill in that hollow grind, and I think that's due to an increase in armor and resistance, and they want a more durable weapon.
Right,
so
right. Beefier the armor, beefier the weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Now we have an extra special one.
This guy's interesting.
Yeah. So this is the Dragon Sparrow Dao, the hidden hilt Dao, and as you can see, the handle is hidden inside the scabbard. So, yeah. Let's see
and
what
again,
you think of this
like
one.
the other blade, we've got a very angular tip here, that what I would call ninjato tip, even though that's not correct. I haven't got to use this one yet to cut. It's very comfortable in hand, despite the very simple hilt on it. But other than that, it's really comfortable to move around. It's light. It's got a nice straight. Again, there's no curvature either direction. This looks like a single beveled edge.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this cuts.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. And then, and once again, this is an example of a Dao that has the ornate ring pommel. This one has a fancy coiling dragon sparrow.
Now, do we have an answer on what period this one would be?
This one is also a Tang Dynasty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these ones are all Tang Dynasty. Now, one other thing about this is that the length, right? This is a little bit of a shorter blade. It's similar in length to the Han Dynasty Royal Arsenal Dao, but it has a lot more heft to it, right? So, personally, I like to have a little bit of weight in my blades, but I do like the Royal Arsenal.
Agreed. I like a little heft. Very nice, weighted well. I'm really interested to see, because of this, it's got a really steep bevel on the edge, so I'll be interested to see how that cuts. This is an interesting piece.
And next we have the Tang Heng Dao. So I made a video on this one. I believe you've made a video on this one.
Indeed.
This blade is super fun. It's a little bit lighter.
A lot of fun. It's on the light side for the length that it is. Absolutely. Yeah. As you can see up here, this back edge actually is sharpened so that you can do flicking type cuts upwards, or in a situation where you can flick up and cut with that back
catch
edge.
The wrist. Yeah.
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 But it's very, very light for what I expected it to be at that length.
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
still has a thick spine.
Yeah,
despite its
and
lightness.
yeah, and unlike some of the other ones, this blade profile, it has this back edge, but it also is basically a triangular kind of flat grind instead of having a secondary bevel or a secondary grind towards the edge. So it's
it's completely flat grind. So
yeah.
Despite that, it cuts really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, it's an edge alignment thing. As long as your edge alignment's on, you're going to have a fine time with it. If it's off, not so much.
Yeah.
I particularly like the scabbard on this one, where they went with the dark wood and the wrought iron fittings.
Mm-hmm.
Everything on this one's nice and tight.
Yeah.
This was a really fun piece to get.
Yeah, I really like this blade as well. It feels very maneuverable, and I made a video where I talked about, this one you can almost do some Jian techniques as well as some Dao techniques with it. It's kind of a mix of those worlds.
I feel like there's definitely some crossover, especially with these straight-bladed Dao.
Yeah, and during the Tang Dynasty, that's another thing, is that all the Dao were completely straight, or almost all the Dao. I don't want to say any categorical statements, but almost all the Dao are completely straight. And then we don't have a whole lot of examples of Tang Dynasty Jian. Most of the surviving things we have, what little we have, are Dao. And I think this really shows a time period in China where the Dao was extremely popular, and in both civilian and military contexts, because we also have these fancy, like the double Dragon Sui Dao, these fancy ceremonial Dao that would be granted to people by the emperor. And but the Jian will come back again, just not in the military, but it will rise to be a super prestigious weapon. And the Dao will undergo some massive changes after the Tang Dynasty. All right, so that's the part one of this video where me and Jeremy take a look at all of the LK Chen single-handed Dao that he's made thus far. And what we're going to do is we're stopping at the Tang Dynasty. In part two, we'll continue with the Song up to Qing Dynasty. And part two will be on Jeremy's channel. And after we get through all the blades, we're going to talk a little bit about, what our preferences are and what we think LK Chen might do next, that kind of thing. And so make sure that you go from my channel onto his channel and check out part two.